Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Um, we're going to give you some perspectives about uh, being able to participate in research as global campus undergraduates. And I'm going to start out by giving a general perspective of research and what you can get out of it and everything like that. And then we'll turn it over to Dr. Daffin, who's going to be a little more focused on research in the in psychology, because that is where we get a large number of our students from global campus who actually participate in undergraduate research. But as far as the overview goes, why I'm here is, so my name is Dr. Jeremy Lessmann. I am the director of the Office of Undergraduate Research. And that is a part of an organization in WSU called the Division of Academic Engagement and Student Achievement. It used to be the Office of Undergraduate Education, so I apologize for not completely updated slides. But in addition to being the director of the Office of Undergraduate Research, I am also a professor in the chemistry department, and I've been teaching at WSU for over 20 years. And I've helped guide a lot of undergraduates into labs and research opportunities and things like that. So like I said, I'm going to start with the overview for what research is and the components of it and what you can get out of them. So Lee, if you want to hit the next slide, please. All right. So research, what we talk about research, and I use a broader definition of research than what you all might think coming from the chemistry side where we're in a lab and everything like that. But research is making new contributions to some branch of knowledge, right? And so all across the WSU system, undergraduates are actually an integral part of the research or the scholarship or the creative activities that are taking place um, um, and bringing new knowledge to our world. And there's several components. And so I want to go back and emphasize a couple of words that I said there: research or scholarship or creative activities. Because getting involved as an undergraduate in any one of those aspects uh, of your degree just brings so much to the table for you to help build your portfolio, to help get you ready to move on to the next stage. And so if you're not in a field that does traditional research like my chem majors do or a lot of STEM majors do, well, certainly in the social sciences, like with psychology and sociology and criminal justice, and even in some respects, political science, there are ways of doing research like projects to gain more knowledge, to put into practice what you've been doing and everything like that. And of course, our friends in the humanities, their involvement in creating just new, beautiful things also brings in some of those key factors. So Lee, if you want to go to the next one. So there's basically four components that we're trying to get our undergraduates to get out of research. One is mentorship. What you can see here are many reasons students get involved. And we can make all of this happen in one way or another. I mean, certainly if you ever have an interest in going to graduate school, for instance, getting experience as an undergraduate doing research is a must. But that interaction with the faculty members is also key, because you're going to need letters of recommendation and from people who know the you behind the student, not the student. All right, the student is in your transcript, but the you behind the student only we can get picked up on with interpersonal interactions and things like that most of the time outside of traditional coursework and things like that. And hey, there's potentially some funding involved for some of you, just a little bit perhaps, but not much. But every little bit helps, as you all probably know, and everything. All right, so next slide, Lee. All right, and so what's in it for the faculty? Why do we want students to get involved with us in doing research. And again, in chat, if you might want to come up with a couple ideas or something. Absolutely correct, Aaron. They do. And especially the younger students get involved with projects, the less sort of, I don't know, baggage and bad habits they bring, right? Yes, we absolutely get to work with great students. Yep, and absolutely true. Um, Spreading the knowledge, doing the kinds of projects that are your passion. That's one of the reasons why we've got our faculty in our positions trying to do scholarship in their field. And the reason why we've chosen those projects is because they're passionate about it. And many of us have worked on them for years and decades even, and they've just become a part of us. And we want to share that joy and everything like, okay, Lee, get through a few of these. And so here's just a few responses about why they do. Some paying it back to the students, right? Some you need the hands in some cases. It's a practical thing like that. You need the bodies to be working on the projects or collecting the data and those things like that. And yeah, good undergrads can really help a program's reputation, especially if they get to publish while they're undergrads and then go off and people see this when they're in graduate school or trying to apply for jobs later on and things like that. Okay, I'm going to speed things up a little. So nextly. All right. So how do you get started? Well, that's one of the reasons why we're doing this presentation. Is to sort of give you an idea how to get your foot in the door, and then where can you get help? Well, there are lots of places. Can you move on? Okay. My office is one of them, and there's a whole number of things we'll do. We'll leave this up here for a little bit because we're sort of getting near the end of my portion of this. But my office is here to be able to encourage and helps undergraduates find research opportunities. There's a number of ways we do that in person here on the Pullman campus. We have some courses we teach to give students the skills to identify research opportunities and reach out to faculty members. But what might be most applicable to you all in global campus is that I have a team of undergraduate research peer mentors who basically are trained to do the same things we do in the courses, where they can meet with you one-on-one. And one of the side benefits of COVID is now we can all have virtual meetings. And so the peer mentors are available to talk to students on any campus about how do they identify research opportunities, how to reach out to faculty members, what else they need to know about getting ready to do it, but then also some other things might offer. Yes, I have an answer to that question, Adrian, in a sec. I'll just talk a little more about my peer mentors. These are all undergraduates who've been doing research, some for multiple semesters. I've started to expand the sort of my portfolio of undergrads. So yes, I got STEM majors. I got plenty of those, but I now have a dedicated psych major who's been involved with research for a couple of years. I've got a student who's done human development, and I actually have a comm major this year. She's a brand new peer mentor. And so she is eager to help other comm interested students identify the possibilities in their fields. So yeah, I'm trying to cast a really wide net. Okay, but one of the other things besides the peer mentors is some funding. And so if you get involved, if you take this academic year and look for opportunities to get involved with research and start getting involved with research and are going to be continuing through the next academic year, we give out undergraduate research, we call them undergraduate research awards here. Really, they're scholarships. So there's scholarships that we give to undergraduates who are doing or will be doing undergraduate research in the next academic year. You have to have a faculty member who is going to be your research mentor. You have to have a project identified and everything before you can apply, but there's time. All right, our applications are going to open in November, and then they're open until early to mid-February. And then we spend spring semester out money. And I have given money to students on other campuses. So I have given money to global students. I have given money to students at Vancouver, at Tri-Cities. This is a system-wide thing because we want you all to be involved with research. Okay, Lee, next. Okay. If you're interested in digging into more, because we don't have a lot of time and everything like that, I really should be wrapping this up. Undergraduateresearch.wsu.edu. That is my office's website. It contains a lot more information, a lot of links for students to check in on, ways to directly set up appointments with the peer mentors, and everything like that, information about the fellowships and other things. The last thing I want to talk about is disseminating your research. So go ahead and actually click through to a second one. Yeah, this one. Nope, back one. Right. Circa. Nope, previous one. The one with the red circle on it. Circa, the showcase for undergraduate research and creative activities. This is the big undergraduate research poster competition where we bring together undergrads from across the WSU system to present posters on their work. The reason why we have this little circle there is because that is one of the judges at Circa interacting with a student, a WSU student from a different campus. It might be a global student. It might be a student from Vancouver who couldn't make it over or something like that. But I will say, you are all welcome to present your work. Global Campus helps with part of it, getting the posters printed, getting the posters physically to Circa. They even can help with travel costs because we have had global students come to Pullman to present. And I will also say, we have had global students who are very successful and have won awards at Circa. So this really is something you can get involved with and hopefully become a great benefit to your growth as a student and your preparation for whatever it is when you go to the next level. And the last slide that I want to show is just when do you get ready for Circa? So Circa 2024 will be on March 25th. But you can go in and you can see who's presented what and from where in past Circas and everything. We've been running Circas since the teens in one form or another. So there's a lot of background there. And we've always tried to make sure that global students have an opportunity to participate as much as anybody else does. So that's about it for my part of this. I'm going to turn it over to Lee, and he'll take it from here, but I'll be hanging on for people to ask questions with when we're done.
All right, everybody. I'm going to leave my video off. I hope that's okay, just to make sure my bandwidth's okay. So hopefully that's fine. But my name's Dr. Lee Daffin. I am a associate professor in the psychology department. I have been online director this is my 12th year. So I've been doing this for quite some time. During that time, we've had research experiences for about 6 of the years, and we routinely have students present at Circa, as Dr. Lessmann was just describing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just showcase some of the opportunities in the psychology department. Other departments may have similar experiences for their students. I would probably inquire with them if you're not a psych major, which I don't think any of you are, which is perfectly fine. But what I'm going to talk about is our 2 major opportunities, Psych 498, which is our research assistant, and then Psych 499, which is our independent study. All right, so 498 is, like I said, research assistant. And what you the way they say this, the way we do research in the psych department, you could either work with a faculty member, which is what this is, or you could work with, okay, or you could work on independent research. So 498 has you assisting a faculty member. The faculty member is typically me, because as online director. So it's sometimes students do work with other faculty. Maybe they're near the Vancouver campus, or maybe they're near, if they're a global student near one of these other campuses, Tri-Cities, sometimes they can work with faculty on those campuses too, and then do it under 498 global campus credit. And that's an important thing. You couldn't sign up as a global student for Vancouver 498. The registrar's office won't let you do it, so you would have to come under global, but it's not a problem at all. But in this research assistant, just like you would do in Pullman if you're working with faculty or anywhere else, actually any other university is basically the same process for the most part. You would, and this is in social sciences too, I should say, but you would conduct literature review, look at the existing literature, see what's been done, try to find gaps in the literature, and then share it out with your faculty mentor and kind of go through and develop a project from that, or a research question or a hypothesis that hasn't been tested. This builds up an introduction for a paper. So it's any type of research process you do in social sciences or sciences, you kind of start here. You're assist with data collection. Sometimes that includes developing the surveys in Qualtrics. It could also include analyzing the results once data collection is done. Typically, we work on a paper or poster. I try to have most of the students, ideally all the students doing 498 or these 499s I'll describe here in a second, present at Circa or our psych department symposium. But I've had students in the past actually work on papers and submit them for publishing. And I'll show you later, we've had success with that too. And then the last point is what I was just saying, present at the symposiums WSU has, or even conferences going outside of WSU. I'll talk about the Circa experience and why I think that's an important one here in a second. So the other experience is 499. It has two versions. It has literature review option. Before I get to there, basically you're doing your own independent study. So you're coming up with your own question you want to study, you're investigating it, you're not doing research that a faculty member is kind of identified, and then you're kind of tagging along to help with it. You're doing your own, whatever it is you want to do. So you can do that as a literature review, where you go back through that process I just described and do an exhaustive literature review. Any topic of interest to you, you have a paper synthesizing the findings of the articles. A lot of that is used to build and go into the next opportunity, hypothesis testing. And that one there, you're literally have done that literature review process. You know what the gaps are for whatever topic you're interested in. And then you do a research study on it. You write up all your, or you draft all your IRB paperwork. We'll submit it together. I have to actually submit it as faculty, but we'll submit it, get approval. Once you have it, you can go through, then collect data. You do your own data analysis, come up with your conclusion to your results and discussion sections, APA formatted since we're in psychology. And then most students present it somewhere, and we could even submit for publication. So there are the two general opportunities. So the question is, if you're in psych and you want to go through and apply and do research, how do you go about doing it? So this is where the little, I think it's called a tile, little class tiles from Canvas. But if you're a psych major, we have this area called the student resource room where all psych majors and minors are put into. So if you're looking for it in Canvas, it is in, if you're, again, as long as you're a psych major minor, you were added in beginning of the fall semester, you would look for that right there. It doesn't say, it actually does say student resource room, but it doesn't display the whole title on it. But you would look for that, basically, that tile on your list of classes. Once you go into it, you'll see on the left side a series of options there. If you click on modules and you scroll down to opportunities to conduct independent research, you'll see then the applications for 498 and 499. 498 is not completely independent. It's still conducting research. When you go into the overview, you see this. And so you see a description of what these different opportunities are. So I just already described both of them, but you go through there, look at that. If you decide you want to apply, the applications are underneath the description of the two different types of research opportunities. And you go through and you answer a series of questions. It's about an 8-page application, but I don't just take anybody that applies. I usually try to make sure you've got a solid project, something that can be done in a realistic time frame. Again, I'm your mentor in most cases, not always. Sometimes I have PhD adjuncts that I also have mentoring students, just so we have some of you, if you're come up with something in an area I don't necessarily know really well, I have an adjunct that is in that area, you're better mentorship from that person. Not that I won't try and put every effort in I can, but you have somebody that knows the area better. So I sometimes see if the adjuncts want to be involved in it, it gets them involved in more than just teaching within our program. But in the application, you go through, answer a series of questions. Why do I want to be a research assistant? Why do I want to do independent research? Every application has the same self-assessment questions where you go through and talk about realistically, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do I think I am with information literacy? Where do I think I am with scientific literacy, quantitative reasoning ability, writing ability, communication skills? And if you self-assess in the beginning and you say, look, I know my ability in this area is only maybe a 3 out of 10, just explain that. That does not kick you out for being research, doing any research. It just means I'll work with you a little bit more and you need to maybe work a little harder in some of those areas. But the purpose of experiences like this are so you can build up your resume, so you can gain these experiences and these skills that you need if you want to go into grad school. And even if you're not looking to grad school, if you're going into a research related field, you're going to need to have this, and employers are going to expect it. So again, I think students get worried about the self-assessment questions, but they don't basically select you out too. They're just to help me to know where you're starting at. The other parts of the application ask about things like if you've had our statistics class, research methods. The application's kind of clear that you should be at least have had 311 and be doing 312, which is methods, by the time you really begin your project. And I make exceptions for that. Some students take 311, which is statistics. In the fall, they go into 312. In the spring, that's okay if that's where they're doing it. I can work with you. That's what I'm saying. So if you're accepted into for your research project, you're getting an email like this. It will come through to you. It's just from my Word file, but you'll get something that looks like an email, and just basically telling you that you've been approved to take part of this study or this opportunity, and then gives you instructions what to go through and do. Once you've done everything the email talks about, then we get into what's the timeline look like for these projects. So basically 498 and 499, the way I intend it to be, I try to have it that it's 2 semesters, and realistically you really can't get done the entire project in a semester. These are just too complicated. You're going to be frantic and stressed out trying to get it done in 1 semester. So I usually have them start fall semester like they have now this semester, and then carry over into the spring semester. So in the fall semester, you can see right here what you're basically doing for literature review. You're identifying whatever psychological construct or theory or you want to study. Typically that's done in August. Really, that's more so done when the application is submitted. And most students apply into these opportunities in the spring semester for the following fall, or I'll get applications over the summer. That's fine also. But by the time we start, most students already know what it is they want to study, what they're looking at. In September, we're usually conducting literature reviews on the topic. You're starting that. Now, this is a lit review option, so this is going to be in a great deal of detail. So you might be collecting 20, 30, 40 articles during that time, reading them, summarizing them as you get into October through January, checking for new research. I mean, research is published all the time, so you want to try to stay up to date, even though you just literally did it a few months ago. New stuff's published every month, so all the time. So you want to kind of check back to see if maybe some new papers emerged that shed some light on what your topic is. Most students move to writing the paper February through March, and then typically are submitting to me by April. Whoever's supervising, most likely me in most cases, but not necessarily. And then making any changes for return. If you're presenting a Circa, this timeline gets sped up a little bit by about a month because Circa occurs late in March. Circa occurs late in March, and so we might try to get basically instead of submitting in April to me, you probably submit early March so we can go through it and you can start generating your poster. Just some examples of deliverables, topics by August 31st. I asked for an annotated bibliography by Sunday of week 15. And then you submit a draft of your literature review, again, early April or early March, depending if you're presenting at Circa or not. And then your final version's due by Sunday of week 15 for the spring semester. So that's the literature review. Hypothesis testing has a little more complicated. Some aspects of what you're doing in it, you're going to see in the lit review. But what you're going to do is you're going to start planning out your project from August to September, completing any human subjects training. If you haven't done it yet, that's required. Most students have done this at the time when I've sent their acceptance, over usually summer or late spring. They'll go take care of it right away. So if you haven't done it, though, by that point, you have to do it because when we move in September to completing and submitting your IRB forms, IRB will check to make sure the training's been done by everybody, including me as your principal investigator. October through January, once we get approval through the project, October could be early for that. It may even be more like November, but let's go with October for now. We start data collection. And students usually, while the data is being collected, and they could be doing that through the psych department's research pool. There's external data, external places where you can go and get data to, or you can put your study out there and people can take it, general population. But while that's all going on, you're working in your intro method section. In February, hopefully all the data is collected by then. So we begin the process of analyzing the data, writing up results in discussion sections. March, if you're presenting at Circa, again, this year coming up, or next year, I should say, is March 25th. You will prepare your poster. To have your paper done is what you need to have done first. You almost is better because you can generate your poster from the paper. We try to get that done by early March or mid-March at the latest so we can get it printed. And the psych department does printing of posters for free. And then again, your print's at late March at Circa. If you're interested in also presenting at the psych department symposium, that's late April. Usually any changes to the paper are done by then. If you didn't present at any of these symposiums, then you would just finish the paper by April, turn it back into me, and then by late April, early May, submit the paper back to me with after any changes I had to it that I asked you to make. In terms of deliverables, your project scopes normally due by September 15th. Again, most students have this ahead of time, so most everybody's met this already. But if you want to know, we have 4 hypothesis testing projects going right now with 499, and everybody's at that point for sure, and they're submitting IRB paperwork right now. In fact, 2 to 4 students have already submitted. And then, again, your introduction and method, I expect by January 31st, so I can look at them. There's also discussion sections by March 1st, which works beautifully if you're trying to present at Circa because you got most of that stuff done. Poster for Circa is done by around mid-March, let's say March 10th. And then any final corrections to the paper after you've done Circa. After you've done the presentation, you might even get feedback from the judges or people walking through that you can find useful and maybe add into your paper itself. 498, the research assistant one, fall tests typically include, actually it's mirrors 499, the hypothesis testing a lot. So what we're doing here is we're doing literature review stuff. We're getting IRB paperwork together. We are working on identifying scales, developing new ones if you need to, working out the basis of our hypothesis, purpose of the study, that kind of stuff. Data collection usually starts sometime in the fall, and then spring we're finishing up data collection. If we're presenting it at Circa, then we're getting that ready. Again, it mirrors the hypothesis testing pretty well. And then at times we're preparing for publication. That may occur after we've already finished and you've done your 2 semesters. You might have even graduated at that point, and we're finishing up stuff at that during that time. So, in terms of sharing your work, I always try to encourage my students to do this. In the information, this looks a little bit different. This is actually an old screenshot from Blackboard, but I left it because and basically we have the same information I don't use Canvas for our 499 and 498s. I use Microsoft Teams. So Teams will look a little bit different, but the same information's there. So students would have information about the Circa itself, Psych Department Research Symposium, and then the guidelines for presenting a poster work for any place you're going to present. So students then will work on sharing their work. And then in terms of when Dr. Lessmann was talking, he was showing like you could present remotely if you want to. Students, of course, can do that, but I do strongly encourage the students to come to Pullman. Most have never been to the east side of the state, so there are a lot of them are from the west side. But I really do ask that they come out if they can. Some students are out of state, so it's a little more difficult. Though I have had students come from as far as California before. I have some out of international students, and they definitely can't make it. But if you do come to Pullman, there are grant opportunities. The name of Office of Undergraduate Education. Sorry, Jeremy, that changed. But there are opportunities. You can get some grant funding from Circa that could potentially pay for research you're doing if there's some costs associated with it. It could potentially pay for travel. I know even if that doesn't exist anymore, ASWSU Global does have funding. Global Campus in general does too. Andrea is not on, I don't think, but she could speak to that. But there is funding there. And the Psych Department has funding opportunities too for your research and potentially for travel related to presenting your research. So I just gave a link there for the Psych Department one. But if you're worried about affording coming to Pullman, it's worth it. It's worth it time-wise. I think the experience presenting in person is going to be different than presenting remotely. Get the atmosphere and the energy when Circa's going on, and it's just great. Hold on. It's just crazy, the excitement in the air. All the students are there. They're lined up with their posters. Judges are walking around, people walking around. The atmosphere is just, it's exciting. I usually spend time with the students outside of that because they're students of mine. A lot of them I've had actually in classes before, so I get to spend a little time with them, getting to know them. That's really important. I remember when Dr. Lessmann was doing his part, he mentioned letters of recommendation. Well, get good, strong letters of recommendation. The people you're getting the letters from need to know you. If they don't know you, they can't speak adequately to your abilities. And so doing research or TAing like in the Psych Department are great ways to get that experience. But getting to know the person face to face is really cool too. So coming out after Circa's over and the award ceremony's over at night, I usually take all my students out to dinner that came in, and I'll treat them to dinner. Sometimes they bring family members. I'll take them out too. Within reason, alcohol you will have to pay for, but it gives me some additional time to spend with you, and I enjoy it. So I think I mentioned it earlier. One of the questions like why do the research for faculty? Well, that's one of the reasons. And then lastly, we do get publications at times. So this is an example of a publication from 2018 that I did with Ashley Jones, who was my first student who did research. And we actually did her work in 2017. The article finally got published in 2018, or it might have even been 2016 or 17. But this is an example of something she did as a Psych 498 student, so the research assistant. So there are opportunities to publish also. Student perspective, I was going to have Roy Hodges on to talk about his experiences with 499 from last year. Unfortunately, he couldn't stay on past 615, so I don't have him on right now. Does anybody have any questions? I think that Jeremy's addressed them. Or Jeremy, do you want anything to what I said or anything? Or
I just want to mirror everything you said about especially the experiences being at Circa, because in the professional world, you're gonna get out there and present your work in front of other people. And yeah, yes, there are some virtual options these days for many big conferences, but if you're getting to that level where you're presenting, you're to have the experience of doing it live in front of people is, as Lee said, invaluable.
And it's a
So,
CV, it's a CV line item too. I mean, it's your
yep.
poster presentation, or if you're presenting as a formal presentation at a conference, that's important there. And at undergrad level, anything you're doing like that is resume building. It's going to give you a leg up on anybody else applying to grad programs or applying into jobs, not to always focus on grad programs, because some students go right from here to careers, and it opens up doors. Employers like to see that kind of stuff. Hey, Jeremy, would you say Circa is more like a medium-sized conference size?
Yeah, yeah, I'd say a medium or a regional conference
Yeah.
and things like that. I mean, I have been to some ginormous ones in my time. But this is, we had almost 250 students presenting their work. Now, they weren't all presenting individually. Some of these were group projects. But that's a good chunk of undergrads from across multiple disciplines. And Circa has categories. Um, Obviously, there are STEM-based categories. So there's physical sciences and engineering. There's two different life sciences categories. There's the social science category. There's a humanities category and an arts and design. And we also now have a new category, which we created back during the pandemic, called the research proposal category. So this is for students who are right getting into it, but haven't been able to do a project yet, but want to start gaining experience, where they put together a presentation based on this is our plan and what we're going to do. And that's open to students in any of the other categories. And so it's a great way for students to start to practice everything. And one of you and I responded to said, is participating in research more, because I don't know if the recording will pick this up, but is participating in research more useful for people who want to get into research-based field rather than a field like social work or clinical therapy? And my opinion is the skills you build, what we've talked about critical and creative thinking, communication, working with teams, and everything like that, which is something you get out of research, is invaluable no matter where you go.
Yep.
And certainly in some of these fields, I mean, I hope that if I had to work with a clinician or something like that, they were somehow up on some of the latest quote unquote studies. Those studies, that's research. And so to be able to interpret it and understand it for yourself so that you can see how it applies to what you're doing. Again, it's just an invaluable skill.
Yeah, and grad schools they want something beyond just classes. If you've only done classes and applied to grad programs, in competitive areas like psychology, the likelihood of getting in is nil almost. Maybe not that strong. It's pretty close. You got to have something more. So these experiences, and some of the areas you were describing, to understand want to go into doing this or that, you may not be doing research in your career, but you're going to need that for grad school. But you're always keeping updated, even if you're just doing social work. You're always keeping updated in the literature. So you're going to be immersed in that research kind of stuff. You're not conducting your own original research. You're going to still be consumers of research. So it's important to have that mindset from the start. And by doing research while you're at WSU, you can demonstrate that you are committed to that. So I think it's important.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one more question in the chat, if Dr. Lessmann or Dr. Daffin could address that.
I actually thought I was. Yeah, I was muted. I didn't realize. These research, everything we're describing is for global students right now. And Jeremy's perspective is, everybody, all campuses. But my perspective is this is what we're doing with global students. Now, Pullman Psych and Vancouver Psych and Tri-Cities, they also have 498s and 499s. But these are specifically with global students. And our success rate at CERC I put in the chat earlier, has been really good. In fact, the year before, I think we had more students that won awards than even Pullman Psych did, which is unusual. So, or at least we had as many. So normally they beat us by one or two because they have more students, but I mean, we've done well. The global students, they come and they represented you really well. Raymond, what's your major? Okay. Jeremy, is
All
history
right.
doing more of the creative activities? Is that would ever fall under?
History, I there's actually, from what I know of the history faculty here in Pullman, there's opportunities for what I call scholarship. So, digging in and doing interpretations and things, not necessarily creating new stuff, but new interpretations on historical events and tying them together and those types of things. They may not have any history 499s or 498s on the global schedule, but that doesn't mean we can't start. Those courses are easy to get on the books. And if we've got students, and one of my goals is to make sure that the a lot of the non-STEM and non-traditional social science faculty know that undergraduates can be valuable for their own scholarship and help out.
Yeah, and some of the global programs are newer, so they're just getting established right now. They're trying to get their legs. So they're add that stuff on, I'm sure, with time. Psych's the one, I think the main one now. I don't think we're the only one, but we're the main one right now. But I see the other ones doing that. It comes up in academic council meetings I attend for global campus, so other departments have talked about it. Some are not sure how to go about doing it. If you're really that interested, I would say reach out to your department, find out who the online director is, and reach out and express the interest in having these opportunities, because I mean it does even the playing field so that you all have the same opportunities that the Pullman students or Tri-City Vancouver students do. And it's let the programs know you are interested in this.
See, I actually see a history 499 listed on the fall schedule for history. Good, so good. Yeah, I'm not sure what they're using it for, but it's there.
Yeah, I've taken that class, and it's a topical course and not a research-based course.
Yes.
See, that's not the purpose for that course. Okay, that's some work we can do on our end. But yeah, it's sorry.
Some of the programs have different numbers. Psych's using 498, 499. Some use other numbers. But the one thing I would say is if Pullman has it, it's already been approved by the faculty senate. So for global to add that type of opportunity, it's just a matter of putting on their schedule. That's all it is. So if the department has it already, they don't have to get approval. It's already been. I think Pullman has 499 and 498, like I said. And when I added it to global, I didn't have to do anything except add it because we already had faculty senate approval for it. So it makes the process easier.
Right. And again, if you can spread the word however you can to your students and stuff like that. But if students in other majors are interested in these opportunities, one of the things my office can do is work with the Pullman-based faculty to make sure that they know how they can make this work for global, because they may not have seen an example of how that could work. But if we can give them examples, certainly out of what Psych's done, but we can show them that the model can work. And I'm happy to do that. Yeah,
and just so you all know, because I think none of your psych majors, I have had a 499-03, which is a team problem solving, and we just didn't have we don't have it this year. I was trying to get it on the books this year. We didn't have it last year, so we're in a kind of a transition right now with it. But the team problem solving is basically the extension offices in Washington State give us a problem statement, and then the students go through in teams and they come up with solutions to it. And it's been, I did a presentation at the Council for Undergraduate Research over in June on this. There's a phenomenal opportunity. One of the extension office directors came on and presented too, and I didn't notice he revealed it at the time when we're doing our presentation. But some of the stuff they did, the students that did on what was it, fire mitigation in Washington State, especially the Okanagan area, was so impactful that Washington State legislature and stuff kind of got on it. So, and some of the students didn't know. I don't think I had one of the students on from that. But we do that as interdisciplinary work. In fact, that's the way that team problem solving was always designed. think it came out, I don't know what office it came out of, but it was always designed at the time to be interdisciplinary. We had a lot of psych students jumping on it, but we were looking to recruit students outside of psych for that opportunity. So if we have it again, if I can offer it again, I'll talk to the woman who runs it, but if I can offer it again, I'll coordinate with Dr. Lessmann and with Andrea Donnerworth. I think actually I talked to her about it. She said they could advertise it too. So non-majors could take it. The good news is our 499, so you don't have to be a psych major to take them. I have had students from I had an anthropology student, I think it was one semester that did that. So there might be chances that if your department doesn't have research, we might be able to get it through psych at least. And so I'm not trying to step on their toes though. I don't want to, hey, you don't have to go to your department, you can come to ours. That's not what I'm trying to do there. But again, these interdisciplinary teams are how scientists work anyway. We don't work in isolation. We work across disciplines. So that's really kind of cool for that. Okay, any other questions? Well, the comment, go global students, I definitely echo. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been teaching online for 15 years. So I've been dedicated to online education for a long time. And so you guys, if it's non-opportunities in your department, ask them. I mean, maybe they don't know you're all interested in it. Ask them so they can kind of, go out, maybe develop something for you, put it on the books for you all. But there are ways to get the research experience you need. Well, thank you everybody for attending. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for those of you who attended and those of you who are going to watch later. And if you have any other questions we can answer, my office is pretty easy to get a hold of. And like I said, we serve the system.
Yes,
So
we do.
we will be happy to try and get you connected to where you need to be. And a good go Cougs. Yes, Aaron.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.